Thank you, Shai. I came first with a disclaimer. I came here as a student, and I have not been disappointed at all in what I've heard from these experts on the panel. Thinking what I might add to what has been said, when these uprisings started, my point of departure in looking at them was thinking about, should the American embassies in these countries have foreseen what was coming? Because we did not. What should we have done differently? What did we underestimate? What did we overestimate? And some things are readily measurable. You can measure unemployment. You can measure the results or some of the impact of a global recession. Other things are a little more elusive, and they escaped us. The astonishing growth has been pointed out here in the use of computers, 5 million Egyptians on Facebook, an immediate ability to mobilize and to connect, and have the Tunisians connect with the Egyptians. That was something that was moving much faster than I think any of us realized. We also underestimated that this global recession was hitting perhaps a different class, a different group of youth in these different countries. Because in Tunisia, for example, where education is virtually universal, the people who came into the streets were university graduates. They were people who had been to university and who had aspirations, who had developed aspirations for their future. The way a fella in the Delta might not have developed these same aspirations, and thus it became more bitter. The spark, nobody quite could have foreseen. Here in this forlorn, miserable town in central Tunisia, a young man who it's just overflowed him and he sets himself on fire in front of the police station. This would have gone unnoticed 10 years ago. It would have gone unnoticed globally, but somebody caught it on their cell phone, and that was picked up by Al Jazeera. And in a very short time, it became a rallying cry for everybody around the region. Another aspect that some people haven't really thought of, but I've heard Tunisians confirm it to me, the influence of WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks were the leaks of reporting from American embassies overseas. In Tunisia, for example, it's always been a popular rumor about the corruption within the Ben Ali family. The gossips are full of it, but it's in a rumor stage. And then you read in the newspaper that the American ambassador has reported specific instances of corruption by the family of Ben Ali. And all of a sudden, this gossip becomes fact. And that has an additional mobilizing appeal. So thinking back on what embassies knew, what they should have known, another aspect is the health of the president involved. I think we underestimated the extent to which President Ben Ali was suffering from prostate cancer. And that was limiting his ability to govern on that side. He was seeing fewer people. He had his fingers less on the pulse. And in another way, I think some of the same had happened to President Mubarak. 30 years in power, in his 80s, he was seeing fewer people, getting less of a personal understanding of what was happening in his country and relying more and more, therefore, on his security services to tell him what was happening here and there around the country. In a contrasting situation, in Tunisia, the army was completely out of it. When Ben Ali called on the army to assist the police in putting down the rallies and the demonstrations, the Army Chief of Staff refused and said, "This is not the job of the Army. We're not involved in internal politics in any way." And this was part of the crumbling of the elements of support for the regime. In Egypt, in contrast, you have the army in charge of the transition. The army as the catalyzing force, telling President Mubarak finally that he should go, that it was time for him to go. And that shift was a threshold shift in Egypt. In Bahrain, you had something quite different. You had probably of the Gulf countries, Bahrain is the country with the largest proportional Shiite population and the most underrepresented population in terms of governance in the country. And there was a clear split in the ruling Sunni al-Khalifa family or clan, those who wanted to try to reach a compromise middle ground, and those who felt that that was a slippery slope, that once you started taking steps in that direction, it would only be a certain amount of time before the Khalifa as a clan lost their superiority. You see something of the same thing happening in Syria today with the Alawites hanging together, because if it starts to slip, they are a minority in Syria, and the Sunni majority will sooner or later succeed in replacing a great many of them.
Bob, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Can I ask you one question, which I will then ask the panel, and with that we'll close.
Let's do it. I'm going on a little too long.
How vulnerable do you think are the regimes in the countries where nothing significant has happened so far? Let's focus for a second on Jordan and Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. I think, like Professor Makia, that what has happened is going to have repercussions in every single country in the area. Already we're seeing repercussions happening, and every government responding in some way more attentive to the aspirations of its people than it was before. Now the Saudis respond as Saudis have responded by opening the purse in many ways. Jordan has tried to run a very delicate line between a little opening, but underneath still an iron glove in the hands of the king. I think if we're looking toward the future, past the current hotspots of Syria, Yemen, Libya, let's keep an eye on Jordan. Let's keep an eye on Algeria as two countries that have elements very active involved. But it isn't going to be limited solely to the region either. You asked, I think, a very pertinent question when you asked, what do these Arab uprisings mean internally in Iran? We have seen demonstrations in Zimbabwe because of this. Look what's been happening in Israel with people voicing their dissatisfaction by moving out on the street. I think there's a relationship, a link there, too.
Absolutely. Great. So, first of all, thank you.
You're welcome.
For your service to your country and for helping us out.